oracle stood before me, ready to whisk me away to the Isle of Destiny. I would, however, miss Rookgard. Its tranquil village remains a somewhat peaceful beacon in a chaotic world, but I had to move on. There was nothing really left for me to do here. And with that, I suddenly found myself on the Isle of Destiny. I was greeted and told that the island functioned as a festival, allowing people to try out the different vocations that were available before settling on Sorcerer. I mean, before settling on the one they feel is right for them. I was invited into a tent with a handful of party skeletons and proceeded to batter them to bits, as I had done with all enemies that came before. Leaving the tent, I encountered an apple-obsessed individual who at first seemed slightly intriguing, and I thought perhaps they would be the paladin instructor. They were talking about bows and arrows and sort of ranged stuff, so it seemed like a logical jump. But I think this guy just had a few issues, and he was talking about shooting things, and I was probably best to just leave him to it. I then encountered the Sorcerer Guide. Now this was more like it. Patches of flame and electricity, with an eccentric man shouting about fireballs. This was definitely my place. He granted me a wand, and at long last I had a magical weapon. I equipped the wand and tossed aside the sword, as it was of no use to me now. And I got to work trying out some magic on the nearby party skeletons! Could have stayed here all day, but that won't get much adventuring done. So I pressed on to the next tent reluctantly. And I encountered an actual paladin who was ready to instruct me in the art of ranged fighting. I took to lobbing spears at the skellies, to very little effect. Maybe it was because these were undead. Maybe I was just bad. But this was not going very well. And was in fact kinda dull. At least with magic you have pretty lights erupting from your wand. This was just chucking a pointy stick and hoping it hit something. Not the most fun. Now, pointy sticks are great. Pointy sticks are wonderful. But zippy zap zap. I took out all the skeletons after much spear throwing, and felt confident that my decision to become a sorcerer was definitely the right path to take. I quickly left the paladin tent behind and encountered my final little test. Spells and runes. concentrated slabs of magic which can be used for a variety of purposes, from healing to powerful attacks. Very useful. Along with spells, actual spells, made of spell. They explained the importance of knowing a spell to be able to use it, and that to use a rune, you use a rune. It was an eye-opening explanation of the magical arts. Salbra granted me the use of Exavo Disflam Her, a small fire wave. Fortunately for her, she was not flammable. But now it was time to test out my new power by burning some bones. Salva then taught me Exura Dis, a light healing spell which would probably be somewhat useful in little scrapes. Then she beat the crap out of me! I thought she was going to break my legs, so I limped away from the magical maniac as fast as I could. I'm now fairly certain these skeletons were actually her former victims, which she keeps around for some sick amusement. I wish I could have done something to help them, but I didn't want to incur her wrath. And they seemed somewhat fine, and more importantly, I'm fine. I had escaped the mighty Salbra, and was ready to gain my vocation. Would I become a strong and noble knight, a wise and caring druid, a paladin, or a mighty, powerful sorcerer? Sorcerer. Of course it was sorcerer. It was always going to be sorcerer. I met with Estrella and accepted the way of the sorcerer, and went downstairs and got kitted out. I was now a proper magic boy. And since I was here, it would be rude not to test out my magic on some monsters. So I leapt into the dungeon below and started zapping spiders and skeletons and the occasional bat. But then more skeletons joined the party, and things started to get a little bit out of hand. I was just about done for now with all this, so hastily made it out of the dungeon, acquired some souvenirs from the little festival, and healed up a little bit. I took a last little look around and made my steps toward the boat to the mainland. Now the trickiest decision so far. Where would we head? Which city should I make my home and be the base of my upcoming explorations? After some back and forth, thinking of the great cities of the main continent, I'd finally settled on a location. Somewhat nostalgic place. It was time to begin adventures on the mainland of Tibia!